Today we're turning crunchy brown paper that's free, like this, into a beautiful art journal, like this. I enjoyed the creative process so much when I made the first one, I had to make a second and then a third. I have a really straightforward method to share today so that we can easily transform all that free packaging paper into scrumptious art. The process is just deeply satisfying, and once you start, you won't want to stop. The free steps are here so that you can do it too. Take a screenshot or find these on Pinterest for free, along with over 70 others. So the first thing we want to do to make a journal like this, which I have to say is unbelievably tactile and fun to create, is to tear down some brown paper. And I've torn a big piece off one of those great long pieces that comes in various boxes that get delivered. Now it's so big, the original piece, I couldn't show it on my desk. What I've done is tear off, let me tell you how much, a piece where the length of the packing was that way. So I've torn across it, and it's even one of those with a perforation in it or two, and I'll show you how to deal with that because that comes in many pieces of brown paper. So the width of this is, obviously it varies because it's got a lovely tatty side. I'm going to say about 50 centimetres wide, and that, I'm just going to be really rough here, about 20 inches. And this width is going to be, if you halve it roughly, the width of your journal. So we are going to fold it that way. When you're considering how big you want your journal to be, and we are going to do a little bit of folding in of the sides on occasion, the width of this brown paper needs to be a bit more than double the width of the journal that you're going to make. Having said that, the way that I've really enjoyed this process the most is when I've just gone for it, had a play, I've got plenty of this brown paper, I made one, I thought, oh, I want one a slightly different proportion, so I just altered it as I went. And I suggest this is one where you don't measure, you just go for it and you make a few of these. Let's talk for a moment about dealing with these perforations, which come on quite a few of my pieces of brown packaging. When you tear your paper down, what you want to do is have the perforations in a position so that when you fold this over, which we're going to do this way, that perforation is not going to be absolutely on the spine of your journal. That's all we're going to do. We're going to avoid creating a weakness on here where we fold for the spine. And other than that, these perforations are not a problem. We can deal with it. We'll do a little bit of bolstering. It will be fine. It's beautifully creased. And if yours isn't creased like this, then I thoroughly suggest a little bit of scrunching, not only because it's super enjoyable, but I think it makes for a more textured, arty, finished journal. And that's all we need to do before we fold. So we're going to make the base of this journal by putting folds in here at a position where all you're really thinking about is, again, avoiding that perforation and thinking about what sort of height you want on each of your pages. And again, I didn't measure when I made this. I've got 12 centimetres height, and that is nearly 5 inches, 4 3/4 inches. I won't be able to repeat it exactly, but I'm going to just have a rough go. Take your paper and fold up. And what you do want to try to do, if you've got a straight edge here, is just keep that parallel with each page as you turn it so that you don't head off in either direction. I'm going to use that perforation to line up just to help me. And now is the time to go for a little bit of scrunching and squidging on your folds. So I've got one there. I wonder what that came out at. Just from guessing, I've got about 13, so a tiny bit deeper. And then I'm going to turn it over and fold the next one. So it's a bit of a concertina really, but in a different way. So again, folding and trying to line up those perforations. When I made my other 2 or 3 examples, I got lots of this folding higgledy-piggledy and not perfect, and it didn't really spoil it at all. It made for interesting pages and a very arty finished journal. Turned it over and fold up, and you'll notice I didn't work out this distance all the way along the height of the brown paper. I didn't do a calculation and divide it by a number in order to get an even number of pages. I'm going to have a funny distance at the top when I finish, and I'll show you what I've done with that. I think it adds to the finished effect. It delivers a bonus, which we love. Turn that over. Just keep going until you run out of paper. Again, I'm going to use that perforation. You'll find that you can get smart when you tear your pieces down at making it so that the perforation doesn't really naturally want to be in the middle. That's the real knack. But have a go at one, and because you may have quite a bit of this free material, oh, but folded in the wrong place, then it's easy to do one and have another go. There we go. Flatten it down, and there, this is what I'm talking about. I've got a few pages here, and then clearly this doesn't have the depth, so it's not the same as the page height here, but that's fine. I'm just going to fold back whatever I've got, and I'll show you now what I've done with that on another journal. So on this one, what I did was let that spare bit sit on the front. I've glued it down and I've used it as a pocket, so I've got a pocket on the front. On this one, I didn't have any spare, it worked out, and I've added some extra collage on the front. In fact, that's a paper bag, so I'll show you how we'll actually do one using a paper bag so that we get an extra pocket on the front. We'll do that when we get to the decoration stage. So now I've got my folded brown paper. I'm going to give it one more squidge with my bone folder, going along all of the sides. And then I want to decide where my spine is going to go. It's not an even width. That's okay, that's what we want. This is art. I'm going to fold it over a couple of centimetres roughly to the side of one of those perforations. So I'm just about balancing up this weighty tatty bit on the edges. In fact, I want the pocket on the outside, so I'm going to do it this way. Fold it over, and again, take your bone folder and give that a really good press down. And that is actually the basis of the journal. How easy is it? What we're going to do is release some of the folds by tearing and make them into pages, and then we're going to add extras to this so that we're not just got the brown paper packaging. And I think this is where it's different from a zine. So yes, we've got some pages here, but it's not really a lot, and I wanted to turn mine into something where I could add more. So we're going to create some hinged pages now, insert those, add some extras, and then bind it and decorate it. So for releasing the pages, you can use a knife and that will give a cleaner edge. But I quite like the effect when I used my metal ruler here. It's quite a heavy one. I just cannibalised this and stole it from an old trimmer that I didn't want. So I got rid of the trimmer and I kept the ruler. And what I'm going to do is where there's a fold, so you can see the fold edges, I'm going to release most of them. We might keep one or two, let's see. That's why you wanted it to be nicely squished down and flat before, because it helps you do this. So the metal ruler Just helps you get a little bit of a frayed edge, which I think is nicer than either cutting it or using your knife, but whatever works for you. So I've got a pocket here, and then it's your choice if you want to keep any of the folds that are at the bottom edge of your journal in order to make a pocket. I think I'll just keep going. So I'll release this one as well. So now we're starting to see a number of pages appear. Doesn't matter if you haven't done it perfectly, just pull it down, fold it out. I've got a fold at the top, so I'm going to release that. I even like the noise when I'm doing it. Let me know if I'm crazy. So turning to, right, I might keep that as a pocket, and that's going to go to the centre. If that was a pocket, then maybe I'll release this one. So down at the bottom here. Get it going. Take your time. And I found this just a bit easier than the concept as of a zine, because you didn't have quite so much precision. It was just seemed natural. And the other thing I like is I don't need a specific size of paper. I can just work with something really rough and ready from my pile of brown paper that I have behind me. And the other thing, I guess, is I feel really good because I'm using stuff up that's taking up a lot of space at the moment. Shall we keep that one as a pocket? So I'll keep this edge here closed, and I've got one at the top there, and then we're done. I can't really tell you exactly how many you want to open up. It depends how many folds you've got in the first place and just what you feel like on the day. There we go. So I've got the pocket ready at the back. I'll just seal that when the time comes. So now we've got the basics of the journal created and the edges ripped, and it might look a bit funny to some people, but to us it looks like a thing of beauty. So for a journal of this size, I'm going to insert about 3 hinged pages. Again, the number is up to you. I have dug out, these are actually first year high school from my local comprehensive science notebook pages. I've taken the name off and the details, but I love them because they've got just interesting images, interesting columns and squares there. We've got, oh, I've got some nice green ticks, and I've got a good and some handwriting on another. And I'm going to turn them sideways, so they're not A4 size anymore, but I want something that is deeper this way than my journal, and something that is a bit wider than the page that I need for the journal. So this is still big enough. The first thing I'm going to do is just fold it down height-wise, roughly the size. I'm not going to be too precise. It doesn't need precision, this. I'll go to about there. And then I'm going to give it a hinge by just folding it maybe a couple, 2 or 3 centimetres in. More than a centimetre, just to give it more strength. And that will give me a page that I can insert. So I'll put that on the side and make up a couple more. You might want to make one with a hinge so the page opens that way, and maybe we'll do a reverse one so that the hinge and the page opens that way, just for variety. I've got 3 hinged pages, so we're just going to take our journal and insert these. In fact, what I might do is just give them a bit more of a squidge to make life easy later on. So I've got one where I've created a hinge and there's a pocket ready there, so I can just literally pick where I want to insert, and even if the page, there we go, just, there we go, like that, just push it in, one, give it a bit of a gap, one here, just tuck it in, and I'm going to have one at the back, tuck that in there. So I've got 3 hinged pages, it's starting to build out, and now it starts to feel a bit more like a journal, and you can see the difference. See the difference there compared with a zine, and I think it feels really lovely, that chubbiness and the depth and the layers. The next thing we want to do naturally is build those hinged pages out and glue them properly where they need gluing. So what I've done to save a bit of time is just tear off 3 pieces of paper. So I've got some beautiful music paper here. It's quite delicate, but not too delicate for putting in here, and I think the colour really works. And the height I've gone for on each of these is the height roughly of the journal. I didn't measure individual pages, even if they vary. I've got a couple of pieces of scrapbook paper as well, and I haven't cut them down. I've let them be whatever the scrapbook page was or the music paper size was. So at the moment they go off the page, but I'll use that to our advantage. So I'll go in and find my hinged page. So for this one I've got the pocket on the front. So what I'll do is glue that down just on the edge. There's no sewing on this one other than a really simple 3-hole pamphlet stitch a bit later. Turn the page. I think at this stage you'll be in the vibe, you'll be in the zone, and you'll be thinking, I can add something here, I can add a flip down there. You'll really get the feel of it. That needs turning into a pocket there. I should reach, yes, so I've reached a page here where the hinge is actually tucked inside a pocket. So to make life easy, I think what I'll do is I'll take it out and then reinsert it. So the first thing we can do is turn that into a pocket. Just glue that down. And on this side, I'm going to glue all of this little flap down. All of that. I'm not going to keep that as a mini pocket. And then this is the side I want to build out. So shall we have, let's just take one of these. I'm just going to literally glue that on top, and I can already see that the height of this scrapbook paper that I tore off is not the same, and I'm absolutely cool with that. Again, have a little bit of idiosyncrasy about your pages. Make it look as though there is a human factor. There's so much technology in all that I see online at the moment. Let's get that human factor back. Put that on there. And this is obviously too big, so I'll decide now roughly how big I want that to be. I'm just going to, first of all I'm going to rotate it a bit just to make it a bit more even. There we go. I'll just fold that back for the time being, and then this can be reinserted back in here. So that can go in there. And I've got my hinged page back in. This one's a bit easier to get at. Glue that down. And then just take a piece of paper, glue that on top. Very easy. Glue that on top and fold that back wherever you want it. We'll come back to these and do something with them. Glue that down. And then I've got one more, which was my music paper. One here, so we know the drill. Take your glue, glue down the little mini fold, and then I'll get my lovely music paper on top of there. I think that's absolutely scrumptious. Can go on there, and you can see how we get quite a lovely, meaty, bouncy journal just from inserting a few pages, hinged pages, and building them out. I quite like that. I think I'm going to go further in with that one, give it some strength. So let's see where we're at. What sort of depth have we got? So you can see how it's built out. A few more pages in there now. We've got a piece of scrapbook paper there, and I think what I will do is just turn that back on itself again, just to make it interesting. Another pocket, an extra piece here. So what I'll do with this one, turn it back on itself, glue that down, because I can get inside this one. Glue that down, so now we've got a pocket here. It builds up. I've already got my brown pocket here because I didn't put my ruler down and separate here. And I've got a very nice piece of music paper there. And I think I'm going to turn that into a pocket as well. Right, so that is the first build out, adding extra pages. The possibilities are endless for what you can add to this, but what I will do is just add a few tiny little flappy pockets and maybe page drop downs, just to make it a bit more tactile and interactive, which is what I really like. And then I will add a bit of decoration and also show you quite a number of examples of ways I've decorated these two, including how we might do this front. I'm going to add a flappy pocket using a page from this book. This is an incredibly useful book, and flappy pockets are great because they flip flap open, they're interactive, but because you've built the flap in when you're making the pocket, you don't need washi tape, and if you use glue, I do think they might last a bit longer. So I'm going to take a page out of this beautiful book and put that ready. But the other thing I want to do is just build out the pages a tiny bit more so that I've got more place to play, basically. So I've gathered a few pieces of scrapbook paper and book page just here, and I thought what I'd do is add a few extra elements, and then I'll turn the pages later on and show you lots more examples, which I do like to do. So if I get to this page, maybe what I'd do is just add, I like that, I like the design, but I don't like the fact it's not strong. So I'm going to have a stronger piece, stronger colour. I'll have maybe something like that there. Tear it down, not really wanting straight edges on this project. Just take a little bit off on the edge. It's a wee bit too long. And what this will do as well is strengthen the pages a little bit, particularly when we're going all the way across. So stop it being too floppy. The packaging paper isn't too bad actually to start with, and I have lots of it, so I wanted to find some mechanism of reducing the space that's being taken up in my craft room. So maybe I'll have a flappy pocket there when I get to it. I'm going to insert, I've got a double page here. When I've been deconstructing my books, if there's really beautiful pages, I just put them on the side, and this just seemed to have some gorgeous images in it. So I thought I'd keep that, and this seems to look beautiful. I am going to put that on there and just fold it up. It's an opportunity, this journal, to let your mind wander into new creative spaces and really lift any of those boundaries that you naturally place on yourself for how you think journals should be, because this starts with such a basic foundation that it really offers you great opportunity to do it your way. And that's how I think art should be. It's whatever you want in whatever way. Right, I've got an image there. I think what I'll do is just, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just going to split that there. And I know I'm going to lose an image, but I've got something there. Let's make it interesting. Just trim off a little bit down to the fold. And here, so that it folds up easily. I'm just going to turn that into an upturned pocket. So I've got something that folds out and I can see it, and then a pocket here. So there's something to do, there's a purpose to this page. Just feel like break it up a little bit. Not sure what this is, but it's just a bit of collage. Get that on there. And you can see what the process is. You're just going through it and adding whatever you want. It'd be great to have a tag in there. Let me make a little flappy pocket and get that on. Right, flappy pocket. One where you can lift the pocket and move it like this, but it's made from the same paper as the pocket and I'm not having to use washi tape, and that is really solid. That's just with glue. A piece of paper like this size is perfect. Make life easy to begin with and just fold up as usual, as I would when I make my pockets. Flatten that down. I want to add a flap, and the key to this one is to add your flap and then ignore it while you're making your pocket. Your flap wants to be a bit wider than the piece that we normally fold over when we're making a pocket. So that's going to be my flap. There's enough there to get glue on and stick it to the page. So now I want to do my usual folding, so I'd use a little bit of the side to create a flap and fold that over, but you're going to fold it, get that flap that we are going to stick out of the way, fold that over, so pretending that extra big wide flap isn't there, and now I can do my trimming to take the pieces out. Where we've got a corner at the bottom, take all of that corner out and a little bit more. Where we've got a junction of a fold going vertically and horizontally, just take out a piece of pie, and when we get to the other end, I've got another of these corners with a vertical and a horizontal. Take out the corner and a little bit more, and now we do sticking down here, and I always look for the side that I've folded to make the pocket, and I go as far away as possible. I know what I'm doing, and glue that flap down. Then we want a tiny bit of glue at the base of this vertical piece, just to stick that horizontal flap on. And now we can stick glue on this piece here and this horizontal here and fold it over. And we'll be left with that extra bit to use as a flap. And if you want to, you could round a corner, you could trim it down. I think what I'll do is just take a little bit off here and a little bit off here. Just makes it look tidier. And then that can go. Isn't that gorgeous? That can go on here, and a bit of glue is all you need. I've got something interactive and I can put something in there. So we've just got something, we don't need washi tape, we've got something that flaps and is interactive. Let's do something with this front. We've got this extra fold up and it's sticking out quite a long way. So maybe I'll just tear that back, reduce it a little bit. And I'm going to just glue down at the side here. And that will give me quite a decent pocket, and I can do the same on the back. That's not as big, that's easy. Stick that down there. And I want to give it a bit more strength, so I'll take one of my pieces of paper here and just glue that on. That happens to fit. Again, I can't be prescriptive about exactly what you should do because there isn't a should do. There is what can you do and what do you want to do. But you can see how on this one I just built it out. I added a little bit of an image here and went round it with my watercolour pencils, added a bit of a sentiment, and I've got a nice little journal card in there. So I think what I'll do is I've got a butterfly loitering around, and maybe I'll grab a journal card. Pre-made journal cards, you can't beat them. Let's see what we've got. This is a very organic process, as you can see. So a nice big collection of journal cards. Oh, I love the colours on that one. That goes really well. What have I got? There's something that opens out. I like that. It's a bit crazy. He's nice as well. Oh, a long one, and it's got teal in it. What do we think of that? Just gone around this one with faux stitching as well. You don't need a sewing machine all the time. I think that can go in there just to illustrate what we do. I also said I would show you how I added this on the front just to make an extra pocket for another journal card here, and also it's got that complementary delicate paper feel which I think goes with the rest of the brown. I had one of these sitting on my desk, so a paper bag. I have a box of them, and when I sell things in Etsy at the moment I just put the items in it and I sort of stick it all together and make it look nice and pretty. And I thought I would use it, so all I did was I wanted to see the text, so I folded over one side and then folded over the other, so I'm preserving as much of the text as possible, like that. And then all I did was just glue that on. So I glued these sides down, this flap down, and then the whole thing went down, and that just gave me something on the front that was interesting. And because on this example it wasn't wide enough, I just tucked a little bit in, just tidied it up, and I added a bit of collage on the front. But on this one we've got the extra pocket and we've got the pocket on the back ready to decorate as well. So much fun. If you want to, you can literally just add extra pages with scrapbook paper. So why don't we do that with one of these? This is just what was left over from that earlier piece. I think I'll trim it down. Again, tearing to give it the rustic edge, and I'll have it about there. So obviously if it's not wide enough to work in its own right, you can hinge it and build it out. I like the colour. I think I'll just tuck that in there. So you can add as many pages as you like before you sew it. Oh, that looks nice. I've got the teal sitting behind the beautiful butterfly. It's really coming together. I really like these layers. You can see the text here, the handwriting, and a little bit more paper. I think what I'll do is just sew it together with a 3-hole pamphlet stitch so that you can see what it looks like that. And then I'll show you the insides of the others because I've also been using paint and that's added extra texture. And then I'll show you what I use to just pull it all together with a tie. I've pulled off about 4 heights worth of string and I've threaded it onto my needle. I've just tuck these together and make them neat before I make the holes. And I'm not even going to measure where the holes go. One, probably about 3 centimetres, 1.5 inches or so away from each other. I think on each of these I've started in the middle, and I think the intention is that I put some beads on the end of these. Like I did with the first one that I made, this was just a random event. I put some there, so it's gone on the inside. So I'll start on the inside. I'll just start in the middle. Very quick and easy, no measuring. through the middle. Don't have to add dangles, but if you want to add a little bit of bling, you can. Put that back through. How fast was that? There we go. Tie it off. I'll just trim that down to there. Now it's all held together beautifully. Very, very easy. And it's really up to you what else you want to add. And I promised you a quick page turn of the other two journals. This one has a vellum butterfly on the back. It's nice and chubby and held together with a strip of fabric. I put a journal card in that front pocket that we made from a paper bag, and you can see just little bits of extra decoration. The pages on this one flap out quite far. I've still managed to get a page flap down in. This has strips of vertical paper just to build out that page, and I've tucked a little card in here underneath that little bit of brown paper, just leaving a little bit so it would tuck in nicely. Another flip down, and I've tuned together the blue on the back of the tag with the blue on the front of that strip. I've got a little embellishment in the tuck spot, and here we have the flappy pocket. Lots and lots of spaces for you to write, tuck things, add bits of paper, do your own thing. Let me know if you'd like me to do a video on those journal cards. Most of them are made using pages from a book about birds, and it's a lot of fun making them. I'd love to share that. The final journal that I made was this one, again with a bit of curtain fabric for the closure. It's quite different, this. I wanted to play with my metallic paints again, but I definitely wanted to play with paint. And you can see I kept the right hand edges to the page just loose as they were, as the tearing and the strip of the paper just started its journey as we made the journal. Lots of flip downs and flip outs, making it tactile and interactive. But I brought the paint into each of these pages by adding splats, as you can see there. I dug out some acrylic pens and just had a lot of fun. If you've enjoyed seeing me make a small dint in my pile of brown paper packaging, then check out last week's video where I shared 44 examples of how I make my journals tactile and interactive. I think you'd really enjoy that video, and I hope to see you soon.